He thought he had time to forgive. He thought he had time to explain. He thought he had time to love openly. But one tragic accident on Interstate 90 stole that time and left behind a message that would haunt him forever. Before I tell how my life went from complete devastation to something I never dreamed possible, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. You won't believe how this story unfolds. Trust me, you'll want to stay until the very end, because the twist will leave you speechless. Now let me take you back to the day my world fell apart. The September rain drummed against the window of Ethan Walker's apartment in Madison, Wisconsin, creating a rhythm that matched his racing heartbeat. At 29, he sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand, staring at the red recording button that seemed to pulse with possibility. 3 years. 3 years since he'd last spoken to his father. He pressed record. It's me. Ethan. His voice cracked immediately. He cleared his throat, trying again. I don't even know if you'll listen to this. I don't know if I'll even send it. But I need to say some things. Outside, the lights of the quiet suburb flickered through the rain-streaked glass. Ethan stood and paced, phone clutched in his palm like a lifeline. I've been angry for so long. Angry about the divorce, about the way you left, about how you chose work over us, over me. Mom says I should let it go, but you don't understand what it was like watching you pack those boxes and walk out like we were just nothing. His reflection in the dark window looked older than he felt. Tired. But I'm calling because I miss you. God, I hate admitting that. I miss the way you used to take me fishing at Lake Mendota. I miss your terrible jokes. I even miss the way you'd burn breakfast every Sunday and pretend it was artisanal charcoal flavor. A sob caught in his throat. He stopped recording, fingers hovering over the delete button. But he didn't press it. Instead, he saved it as a draft, labeled simply, Dad. I'll send it when the time is right, he told himself. When I'm ready. When he's ready. He set the phone on his nightstand and climbed into bed, unaware that the right time would never come. September 11th dawned cold and gray, the kind of morning that felt like a warning. Ethan drove along the curve of Lake Mendota, heading to his job at the university library, when he passed the roadside memorial, white crosses and faded flowers marking where someone's story had ended too soon. He thought about his father for the 1000th time that week. The unsent message sat in his phone like a stone in his pocket, heavy with potential. Maybe today, he thought. Maybe I'll. His phone rang. A known number. He almost didn't answer. Hello. Is this Ethan Walker? A woman's voice, official and somber. Yes, who's? Mr. Walker, this is Officer Patricia Mendez with the Wisconsin State Patrol. I'm calling about your father, Robert Walker. The world tilted. Ethan pulled over, his hands shaking on the wheel. What about him? Is he okay? A pause that lasted forever. I'm very sorry to inform you that your father was involved in a single-vehicle accident on Interstate 90 last night. He didn't survive. We found your contact information listed as his emergency contact. The words hit like physical blows. Didn't survive. Accident. Last night. That's not possible. You must have the wrong. I'm so sorry for your loss, Mr. Walker. His vehicle left the road around 11:47 p.m. near the Toma exit. The medical examiner believes he died on impact. Ethan couldn't breathe. The lake stretched out beside him, vast and indifferent. In his mind, he saw his father's face, older now, grayer than in his memories, but still his father. Still the man who'd taught him to tie his shoes, to ride a bike, to believe in second chances. And now there would be no second chance. Mr. Walker? Are you still there? I'm here, he whispered. After the call ended, Ethan sat in his car for an hour, watching the memorial across the road. He thought about how many calls like this had been made. How many children had lost their parents in a single moment. How many goodbyes had gone unsaid. Finally, with trembling fingers, he opened his phone and found the draft message. It's me. Ethan. He pressed play and listened to his own voice, full of hope, anger, love, and regret, speaking to a man who would never hear it. For days after the funeral, Ethan stood in front of his father's house in Milwaukee. It was smaller than he remembered, a modest 2-bedroom ranch with peeling blue paint and a mailbox that leaned like a drunk. He hadn't been here in 5 years. The key was under the ceramic turtle by the door, exactly where it had always been. Some things never changed. Except everything had changed. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and old books. Rob's reading glasses sat on the kitchen table beside a half-finished crossword puzzle. A mug of coffee, long cold, sat beside them. The ordinariness of it all was unbearable. Ethan's Aunt Carol had asked him to sort through Rob's belongings, to decide what to keep and what to donate. She'd meant well, but the task felt impossible. How do you reduce a life to boxes? How do you decide what matters? He started in the bedroom, pulling open drawers with mechanical precision. Clothes, watches, cufflinks, all the detritus of a life lived alone. In the closet, he found boxes stacked neatly, labeled in his father's careful handwriting. Tax returns 2018 to 2022, photos, important documents. And then pushed to the very back, Ethan. His hands trembled as he pulled the box forward. Inside were artifacts from his childhood, drawings he'd made in elementary school, report cards, a clay handprint from first grade. Beneath them, a stack of envelopes, dozens of them, all addressed to him in his father's hand. None of them had been mailed. With shaking fingers, Ethan opened the first one, dated 3 years ago, right after their fight. Dear Ethan, I don't know how to reach you anymore. I've picked up the phone 100 times, but I can never find the right words. You were right about so many things. I was a coward. I did choose work over you, and I can never take that back. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. I hope someday you'll let me try again. Ethan's vision blurred. He opened another, then another. Years of apologies, regrets, memories, and love, all trapped in paper, never sent, never read. His father had been reaching out in the only way he knew how, just as Ethan had been doing with his voice message. They'd both been too afraid, too proud, too convinced there would be more time. He sat on the floor of his father's closet, surrounded by unsent letters, and finally let himself cry. Ethan couldn't leave Milwaukee. Not yet. He took a week off work and stayed in his father's house, sleeping in the guest room that still had posters of astronauts on the walls from when he'd visited as a teenager. Each morning he woke up and read another letter. Some were short, just a few lines. Ethan, I saw a joke today that reminded me of you. I wish I could tell you. I miss your laugh. That others were longer, more raw. I dream about the fishing trips we used to take. Do you remember the time you fell in the lake trying to catch that bass? You were so mad, but then we both started laughing and I thought, this is it. This is what matters. Not the meetings or the deadlines or the money. Just this. Just us. Why did I forget that? Why did I let it slip away? I would give anything to have you fall in that lake again, son. I would give anything for one more day. Ethan read them all, every single one, and with each letter, the anger he'd carried for years began to crack and reshape into something else. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. His father had been flawed, broken, human. He'd made mistakes, terrible ones, but he'd also loved. He'd loved and failed and tried again, just like Ethan himself had done in 100 small ways. On the 5th day, Ethan found himself in the garage, looking at his father's fishing gear, still organized exactly as it had been 20 years ago. The rods, the tackle box with its compartments of lures and hooks, the cooler that had held their sandwiches and sodas. He picked up a rod and felt the weight of it in his hands. Muscle memory kicked in, how to hold it, how to cast. His father had taught him that. I wish you could hear my message, Ethan said aloud to the empty garage. I wish you knew I was trying too. But saying it to the air wasn't enough. The words needed to exist in the world, needed to be heard and witnessed and real. That's when the idea came to him. Back in Madison, Ethan's apartment felt hollow. He'd brought the box of letters with him, along with a few of his father's belongings, the reading glasses, a favorite flannel shirt that still smelled like him, the fishing rod. His friend Marcus came by with food, as he had every night since the funeral. You okay, man? Marcus asked, though the answer was obvious. I don't know how to move on, Ethan admitted. They sat on the couch, Chinese takeout containers between them. I have this message I recorded for him. And he had all these letters for me. We were both trying to say the same thing, but neither of us could actually do it. Marcus nodded slowly. What was stopping you?
Fear, I guess.
Fear that it wouldn't be perfect. That I'd say the wrong thing. That it would be too late. Ethan laughed bitterly. Turns out it was too late anyway. It's not too late for you, though. Ethan looked up. What do you mean? You're still here. You still need to say it. Maybe not to him, but to yourself. To anyone who needs to hear it. The idea that had begun in his father's garage solidified. Ethan pulled out his phone and opened the voice message. He played it, letting Marcus hear his own broken, vulnerable voice speaking to a ghost. When it ended, Marcus had tears in his eyes. Ethan, that's beautiful. That's real. I want to share it, Ethan said suddenly. I don't know where or how, but I need to. For him. For me. For anyone else who's waiting for the perfect time that never comes. They talked late into the night, and by morning, they had a plan. There was a grief support group that held an annual memorial vigil in New York City, Central Park, under the lights, where people gathered to remember and heal. It was in 2 weeks. Ethan would go. He would stand in front of strangers and play the message he'd never sent to his father. He would be brave in a way he hadn't been when it mattered most. And maybe, somehow, that would be enough. The 2 weeks before the vigil passed in a blur of grief and purpose. Ethan threw himself into preparing, as if by doing so he could outrun the pain. He contacted the vigil organizers, a woman named Sarah Chin who'd lost her brother to suicide years earlier. When he explained what he wanted to do, her response was immediate and warm. We'd be honored to have you share, Ethan. The vigil is about giving voice to what we carry inside. Your story matters. But as the day approached, doubt crept in. What right did he have to stand up there? His father hadn't died by suicide or disease or any of the tragedies that marked the other vigil participants. He'd died in an accident, suddenly, senselessly. Would his grief even belong there? He called his mother. They'd been talking more since the funeral, carefully navigating the minefield of their shared history with Rob. Mom, do you think Dad would have wanted me to do this? A long pause. Then, your father was many things, Ethan, but he always believed in honesty. Even when he couldn't manage it himself. He'd be proud of you for being brave enough to speak your truth. I'm scared. But that means it matters. Ethan also spent time revisiting the letters. He selected a few, the most honest ones, the ones that showed his father's heart, and made copies. He wasn't sure why. Maybe he'd share them. Maybe he just needed to know they existed outside that box. Marcus helped him practice. They'd sit in Ethan's living room and he'd play the message, trying to get through it without breaking down completely. It never worked. Every time, his voice would crack on the words, I miss you. Every time, the grief would surge up fresh and raw. That's okay, Marcus said. It's supposed to hurt. That's how people know it's real. 3 days before he was scheduled to leave for New York, Ethan drove out to Lake Mendota. He parked near the spot where he and his father used to fish, a quiet cove where the water lapped gently against the rocks. He thought about the last time they'd been here together. Ethan had been 16, angry about something he couldn't even remember now. His father had tried to talk to him, but Ethan had given him the silent treatment, headphones in, sulking. I'm sorry, Ethan said now to the lake, to the memory, to the ghost of who he'd been. I'm sorry I wasted that time. A jogger passed by, giving him a curious look. Ethan didn't care. He needed to say it, even here, even alone. I forgive you, Dad. And I hope, wherever you are, you can forgive me too. The water didn't answer, but something in Ethan's chest loosened. Not healed, not yet, but less heavy. Enough to carry him forward. The flight to New York was turbulent, the plane shaking through storm clouds somewhere over Pennsylvania. Ethan gripped his armrest and tried not to see it as an omen. Beside him, an older woman knitted calmly, her needles clicking in a soothing rhythm. She noticed his tension and smiled. First time flying? No, just nervous about where I'm going. Business or pleasure? Ethan hesitated. Neither. I'm going to speak at a memorial vigil. Her hand stilled. I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment, the plane rocking gently. Then she said, I lost my husband 4 years ago. Cancer. I had so many things I wanted to tell him at the end, but I was afraid of making him sad. So I kept it light, kept it cheerful. And then he was gone, and I realized he would have wanted the truth. Even if it hurt. Ethan turned to look at her. Do you regret it? Every day. But I'm learning to forgive myself. We do the best we can with what we know at the time. When they landed, she squeezed his hand. Be brave tonight. Say what needs to be said. New York City hit Ethan like a wave, noise, light, energy, chaos. He'd only been here once before on a college trip and had hated it. Too crowded, too fast, too much. But now, walking through Times Square toward his hotel, he felt oddly anonymous. No one knew him here. No one knew his story. It made the weight of it easier to carry. He checked into a small hotel in Midtown and immediately wanted to leave. The room was tiny, the walls thin, and through them he could hear a baby crying and a couple arguing. He lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, wondering what he'd gotten himself into. His phone buzzed. Marcus, you got this, brother. Just be honest. That's all anyone can ask. Another text from his mother. Your father loved you so much. He'd be proud. And then, surprisingly, one from Saracen. Looking forward to hearing you speak tonight, Ethan. Remember, you're not alone. He wasn't alone. That was the point, wasn't it? All these people gathering in Central Park, all of them carrying their unsent messages, their unsaid goodbyes, their what-ifs and if-onlys. All of them trying to make peace with the imperfect way love works in real life. Ethan closed his eyes and listened to the voice message one more time. It's me. Ethan. Tonight, finally, those words would mean something. Central Park at dusk felt like stepping into a painting. The trees were tinged with early autumn gold, and the Bethesda fountain glowed in the fading light. People streamed toward the gathering point near the Literary Walk, carrying candles, photos, flowers, and their grief. Ethan arrived early, his hands shaking despite the mild evening. Saracen spotted him immediately and approached with a warm smile. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes that had seen too much. Ethan? I'm Sarah. Thank you for coming. They shook hands, and she guided him through the growing crowd to a small stage area set up beneath a cluster of elm trees. White luminarias lined the path, each one representing a lost loved one. There were hundreds of them. This is incredible, Ethan whispered. Grief brings people together, Sarah said. It's one of the few universal human experiences. Everyone here understands loss. You're among friends. As the sun set completely, the vigil began. Sarah took the stage and welcomed everyone, her voice steady and strong. She spoke about the purpose of the gathering, to remember, to heal, to honor those who were gone by being brave enough to speak their names and their stories. One by one, people came forward. A mother who'd lost her teenage son to a drunk driver. A husband whose wife had died of cancer and who'd never told her how scared he was. A young woman whose best friend had taken his own life, leaving behind questions that would never be answered. Each story was different, but the thread running through them all was the same: love, regret, and the aching wish for one more moment. Ethan's heart pounded. He wasn't sure he could do this. The grief felt too big, too private, too raw. Then Sarah called his name. He stood on shaking legs and walked to the stage. The crowd of faces blurred in the candlelight, dozens, no, hundreds, of strangers waiting to hear him. He pulled out his phone with trembling hands. My name is Ethan Walker, he began, his voice barely audible. He cleared his throat and tried again, louder. My father died 3 weeks ago in a car accident. We'd been estranged for 3 years. I'd recorded a message for him, words I wanted to say but never sent. I kept waiting for the right time. And then time ran out. The crowd was silent, attentive. I found out later that he'd been doing the same thing. Writing letters, trying to reach out, but never sending them. We were both waiting. Both afraid. And now he's gone, and I'll never get to tell him. I'll never get to say. His voice broke. He looked down at his phone, at the play button. This is the message I recorded. I'm not playing it for him anymore. I'm playing it for anyone who's waiting. For anyone who thinks there's going to be a perfect moment. Because there isn't. There's only now. He pressed play. Ethan's recorded voice filled the quiet park, amplified by the small speaker system. It's me. Ethan. I don't even know if you'll listen to this. I don't know if I'll even send it. But I need to say some things. I've been angry for so long. Angry about the divorce, about the way you left, about how you chose work over us, over me. Mom says I should let it go, but you don't understand what it was like watching you pack those boxes and walk out like we were just nothing. But I'm calling because I miss you. God, I hate admitting that. I miss the way you used to take me fishing at Lake Mendota. I miss your terrible jokes. I even miss the way you'd burn breakfast every Sunday and pretend it was artisanal charcoal flavor. The truth is, Dad, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. About us. About the time we had and the time we lost. And I realized something. I don't want to be angry anymore. It's exhausting. And it's not fair to either of us. I'm not saying I'm ready to forget everything. I'm not saying it's all okay. But I'm saying, I want to try. I want to talk to you. I want to see if we can find our way back to each other, even if it's not perfect. Even if it's messy and hard. Because you're my dad. And I love you. I've always loved you, even when I hated you. Especially then. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, call me back. Or don't. But know that I'm here. I'm ready. Whenever you are. I love you, Dit. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. That's it. Bye. The recording ended. Ethan stood on the stage, tears streaming down his face, and looked out at the crowd. Many of them were crying too. Some held each other. Others had their hands pressed to their hearts. He never heard it, Ethan said softly into the microphone. But I did. And now you have too. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it has to be. He pulled out one of his father's letters and unfolded it with shaking hands. This is what my dad wrote to me. What he never sent. He read aloud, his voice breaking on every other word. Dear Ethan, I dream about the fishing trips we used to take. Do you remember the time you fell in the lake trying to catch that bass? You were so mad, but then we both started laughing and I thought, this is it. This is what matters. Not the meetings or the deadlines or the money. Just this. Just us. Why did I forget that? Why did I let it slip away? I would give anything to have you fall in that lake again, son. I would give anything for one more day. Ethan looked up, directly at the crowd. We were both trying. We were both reaching out. But we were too scared, too proud, too convinced we had more time. And now we're out of time. He folded the letter carefully as if it might crumble to dust. So please, if there's someone you need to talk to, if there's something you need to say, don't wait. Don't wait for the perfect moment or the right words. Just say it. Be messy. Be imperfect. Be human. Because time doesn't wait for us to be ready. Sarah Chin stepped forward and gently put a hand on his shoulder. The crowd erupted in applause, not the polite kind, but the kind that comes from recognition, from shared pain, from the relief of being seen and understood. Ethan stepped down from the stage on shaking legs and was immediately surrounded by people. Strangers hugged him, thanked him, shared their own stories of unsent messages and unspoken love. An elderly man with tears in his eyes gripped his hand. I haven't talked to my son in 5 years. I'm calling him tomorrow. A young woman. My sister and I had a fight 6 months ago. Over something so stupid. Thank you for reminding me what matters. Another voice. I'm calling my mom when I get home. Tonight. Right now. Ethan felt something shift inside him. The message he'd carried like a burden had become something else. A bridge, a gift, a light in someone else's darkness. He hadn't saved his relationship with his father. That was lost forever. But maybe, just maybe, he could help save someone else's. And perhaps that was its own kind of redemption. 3 months later, winter settled over Madison like a blanket. Ethan stood at the edge of Lake Mendota, fishing rod in hand, watching his breath mist in the cold air. He came here every Sunday now. Sometimes he caught fish. Mostly he didn't. It wasn't really about the fishing. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Coffee later? I want to hear about the letters. Ethan had started sharing his father's letters on a blog he'd created. With permission from his family, 1 letter each week, accompanied by reflections on grief, forgiveness, and the messy work of being human. It had started as personal therapy but had grown into something bigger. People from around the world wrote to him, sharing their own stories of estrangement and reconciliation, of things said and unsaid. The vigil video had gone viral. The goodbye I never got to say had been viewed millions of times. Ethan had been invited to speak at grief counseling centers, at universities, on podcasts. People wanted to hear about his father, about the message, about what happens when you find the courage to be vulnerable. But here, alone at the lake, it was just him and the memory of a man who'd loved imperfectly and tried anyway. "I think I understand now, Dad," Ethan said aloud. A few joggers passed, but he didn't care. Let them think he was crazy. You were doing your best. We both were. And maybe that's all we ever get, imperfect people doing their best with broken hearts. He reeled in his empty line and cast it out again, the motion automatic and soothing. His mother had started dating again, which surprised him. She said that watching Ethan find peace had given her permission to do the same. Life moved forward. It didn't wait for you to be ready. Ethan's cousin had reconciled with her father after 20 years. The elderly man from the vigil had flown across the country to see his son. The young woman had made peace with her sister. He heard these stories regularly now, each one a small miracle of bravery. And Ethan himself had started dating someone, a librarian named Jordan who'd lost their father young and understood the particular shape of his grief. They took things slow, but it felt right. It felt like hope. As the sun began to set, turning the frozen lake pink and gold, Ethan pulled out his phone. He'd kept the voice message, saved it in 3 different places. Sometimes he listened to it. Sometimes he didn't. But it was there, a reminder of who he'd been and who he was becoming. He opened a new voice memo and pressed record. "Dad, it's me again. It's been 3 months. I'm at the lake, our spot. I caught a base today. Can you believe it? Threw it back. Felt right." He paused, watching a bird skim across the water. "I'm doing okay. Some days are harder than others, but I'm doing okay. I read your letters every week and share them with people who need to hear that they're not alone. I think you'd like that. I think you'd be proud." A lump formed in his throat. "I forgive you. I need you to know that. And I forgive myself too. For waiting. For being scared. For being human." He took a deep breath. Never delay love. Never postpone forgiveness. Never wait for the right time to say what matters. Time is fragile, life is unpredictable, and the people we love can be gone in a heartbeat. Speak your heart now, forgive now, and love openly while you still can, because some goodbyes come without warning, and some words never get another chance to be spoken.